Councilmember Brendan Elwood,
Present.
Councilmember Mark Jocelyn,
Present.
Councilmember Heather Cullen, Councilmember Christina Rustic,
Present.
Councilmember Susan Torgerson,
Here.
Councilmember Errol Tremolata.
Here.
All are present with the exception of Councilmember Cullen, Your Honor.
Thank you. Will you lead us in the flag salute, please? All right, we will now move on to the consent agenda. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve consent.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Brendan, thank you for making the motion, and Errol, thank you for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope, no opposed. So that would be, what do we got? 6-1, 6-0. I can know how to count. All right, let's see. Before we move on to the citizens' comments, as indicated on tonight's agenda, if you are attending remotely and would like to submit public comment, please submit your written comments via in-person, drop-off, mail, fax, or email to sopadal@northbendwa.gov by 5 p.m. on the day of meeting. We are no longer taking public comments for those attending remotely via Zoom unless they have reached out to the city clerk in advance of the meeting to request accommodations. Okay, we will move on to citizen comments. At this time, if you would like to comment on an item that is not on our agenda tonight, we would invite you to come forward to the podium. If you have requested accommodation with the city clerk and wish to speak during citizen comments, please raise your hand through the virtual platform. We will take your comments after in-person comments. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Aaron, Bill, do you have anybody? Oh, welcome.
My name is Gary Stotler. I live at 1262 Haystack Avenue Southeast, and I would like to comment on the PSE power outages and the presentation that's going to be made later this meeting. And I appreciate his presentation of the history of outages, and it was very enlightening. It reinforces my opinion that the grids serving North Bend and its environments are antiquated, inadequately maintained for the weather conditions we experienced, and inadequately designed. And that it is, the remedies for this have been a low priority within the PSE Corporation. The outages over the years have been primarily during bad winter conditions, which cause inconvenience, discomfort, business losses. Hopefully, the few people who have medical equipment will have made accommodations to either power their equipment or go to powered friends and family. But now there is a bigger danger. Imagine an early September day with red flag wind conditions coming through the pass. It has been our usual dry summer, and a PSE line or transformer sparks a wildfire near Twin Lakes State Park. The winds could carry the fire westward along both sides of I-90, and we can kiss North Bend goodbye. With PSE's antiquated system, this is a real possibility. And if you looked at the history of the last couple of years, electrical grids have caused the fire at Lahaina, around Spokane, several in California, notably the town of Paradise, 25,000 people completely wiped out. And now the 1 million plus acre fire in Texas. Some solutions, PSE needs to speed up the study and implementation of more feeders into the North Bend area, increase maintenance of the grids. 6-year maintenance periods for rural areas is totally unacceptable for this area with our weather conditions. And so increase the maintenance of the grids, vegetation trimming, equipment replacement, underground the distribution lines, These are the lines on the wooden poles, not the high voltage transmissions. And a quick story to give some perspective. There's a lady who works the reception desk at Snoqualmie YMCA. She's from Germany, and she's lived in various parts of Europe for years. And she lives over here in one of these developments between here and I-90. She says Europe never has power outages because all the distribution systems are underground. She calls our system third world. And
Mr. Stadler, if you could wrap it up, unfortunately.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I realize high voltage transmission lines cannot be underground, but thank you for your time and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stadler. Have a good night. Anybody online?
We do have one online, unidentified phone number believed to be Michael Thomas.
Thank you. Michael, are you there?
Michael, if you're online, if you could unmute yourself.
Hello, Michael. Oh, okay. I guess we're going to move on. Okay, announcements, presentations, and appointments. Item number 5 is a presentation, recent power outage updates. Tonight, we have Matt Larson from Puget Sound Energy present to provide us an update and recent power outages. Matt, will you please come to the podium? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
First of all, I want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and address the issues and questions and concerns around the recent power outages. And I also want to start by saying, not only are we very proud to serve the North Bend community, but quite a few of our employees actually call North Bend home, along with several members of our leadership group. And they and their families firsthand experienced a lot of the prolonged outages, both in January and February. And so they absolutely understand your frustrations. And I know that because I heard from some of them. And in fact, one of them, my boss, is here tonight, Matt Perry. He just lives a short walk from City Hall here. Many of you may recall back in 2012, there was a pretty severe freezing rain event throughout the entire region. And there was a lot of heavy ice on trees that destroyed thousands of trees throughout the region. And those heavy trees, many of those hit distribution and transmission lines throughout the region, knocking out about 200,000 of our customers. Likewise, with weather predictions preceding the January 17th of this year suggested that we could experience a similar region-wide freezing event. And while the gloomiest predictions did not materialize in the larger region, North Bend received the brunt of this weather system. Severe winter weather conditions in North Bend created heavy ice-covered trees that fell on ice-covered transmission and distribution lines at multiple locations. The ice, in addition, the ice and extremely low temperatures that preceded that damaged several pieces of equipment. Following in response to the January 17 event, PSC quickly and proactively scheduled equipment repairs for the early morning of February 13th. Unfortunately, during those repairs, additional equipment failures occurred, causing additional outages. And for the sake of brevity, I won't get into too many details because as I'm sure, hopefully you received, I made sure to send the copy of the UTC report, of that 7-page report that had far more details. So at this time, I'd just like to introduce Ryan Murphy. Ryan Murphy is our Director of the Electric Operations for our PSC system. And Ryan will get into more technical details in a brief presentation, and then hopefully we'll have plenty of time to address further questions and concerns. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mary, and good evening, council members, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all. My goal tonight is to walk through the January and February power outages, provide details, answer questions, so there's a good understanding about what our North Bend customers went through on those two outage events. I want to talk about reliability in the North Bend area, and then lastly, I'd like to share with you all some things that we're doing to improve reliability. Maybe I gotta be closer. Okay. So what I did here is I produced a map that would help everyone understand the cause of the January 17th through ultimately January 19th outage, as well as the February outages. There's two incidents to speak through. And January 17th, I'm gonna circle the yellow tree locations. Ultimately, the incident began with some tree failures from off right of way that fell into the transmission system. These red lines are high voltage lines that supply power to the North Bend substation. Yeah, thank you for that. And as well, there's high voltage lines that route south of our Mount Si substation that transitions ownership from Puget Sound Energy actually very close to where the yellow tree is shown, right here. Thank you. And it becomes Bonneville Power Administration. We provide transmission services to Bonneville Power Administration, who then supplies energy to Tanner Electric. And so we have the majority of what I'm showing here is Puget Sound Energy high voltage. But again, this section here that supplies power to Tanner Electric, that's a Bonneville Power. So I might advance back to this slide in a moment, but I just wanted to start with a general understanding of how the electrical infrastructure routes. There we go. So talk about the January incident, and the January incident was just, it was a really tough environmental conditions, wind and ice and snow. And I know the power outages were tough for the community, and I am sorry for that. And the incident really began January 17th around 11 a.m. That's where the first tree contacts occurred on the high voltage system that feeds the North Bend substation. And we had great first response, our first response troublemen. We had strong response there. Within an hour, we had somebody on site, and we had excellent response with our tree crews as well. And then our line repair crews were on site making repairs. We ultimately found we had multiple transmission tree failures from off right of way, trees that failed from the wind and blew into the line, as well as damage on the distribution system. So the distribution system is the infrastructure that routes closer to your homes. It's not the high voltage lines that I was just showing on the map there. So as the days went by, our first objective was to get the North Bend substation re-energized so that we could then complete repairs and begin restoring closer to homes. And the conditions were tough on January 17th through 18th. Our final restorations occurred into the evening on the 18th. I think all but a couple of hundred customers were on by 3 p.m. on the 18th. However, the next piece to that January incident was a tree failure. If you could slide back a slide. This tree failure here fell into with a section where it is owned by PSE, but that did impact service to the Tanner Electric customers. So for the North Bend community, that tree fall occurred shortly after we had completed the restorations in the main North Bend, fed off our North Bend substation. And then unfortunately, those individuals, Tanner Electric community members, were impacted by that tree fall that ultimately had to be restored so that Tanner Electric could then bring all their customers back online. And I'm going to speak to this since we're here. I'm going to grab your attention on the February 14th tree, and we can go ahead and advance the slide. And one more, please. So 2 incidents to speak to here. Now, the first incident, this was an unfortunate and a bit of a unique, in an unfortunate way, set of circumstances, and I'm going to walk you through that. North Bend is, as I'm sure many of you know, North Bend, the challenges with reliability here in North Bend is vegetation caused outages. We have tree failures and that occur during high wind conditions, winter weather conditions that are really, really challenging. Large off right-of-way trees that fail and fall into the line. And the truth is, there is just not large enough right-of-ways that a tree can safely fall and miss the line. We have approximately 50-foot right-of-ways there, and many, many trees that route along the lines that are outside of the right-of-way, 100+ foot trees, right? It's a beautiful area, and that's one of the big challenges that we face. And that was the big challenge with January 17th, as well as the incident here that I'm going to cover on the second incident in February. So first, getting to incident number one, February 13th at 4 a.m, not a single North Bend customer knew it, but we transitioned all of the customers in our North Bend area. We switched you all to a different supply. No interruption. You had no idea we did it. But the reason we did that is because we needed to take North Bend substation offline so that we could repair a switch, a high voltage switch that had failed during the ice conditions. So transparently, I'll tell you, going into February 13th, we do this all the time. Our customers have no idea when we switch power sources to do work. What unfortunately happened is we had some equipment fail. And beginning in the evening time, so approximately 14 hours later, we started getting low voltage calls from a certain part of North Bend. Why are my lights dim? Complaints of low voltage. And what we discovered is we had a failing voltage regulator. A voltage regulator is a piece of equipment that raises the voltage. So as you leave the substation, voltage declines, energy is lost, and we have to step that back up at places. And one of those pieces of equipment, unfortunately, started failing. And that really began the outages that occurred on February 13th. We had folks at our control center that were working all through the night, trying everything they could with, again, North Bend substation is offline. You have to remember we're repairing equipment and we're in an abnormal state, unfortunately. And so beginning with that voltage regulator failure, our operators are trying to isolate that equipment, trying to switch to different power sources. And ultimately, we had a second piece of equipment fail at around 11:23 p.m. and that created an even bigger outage. And we're currently doing a root cause analysis on that, but my belief is that that piece of equipment with the high electrical loading failed. And then finally, all customers were restored on around 6:23 a.m. on the 14th. And we were doing well. We were doing well at 6:23 a.m. on the 14th. And then here comes the second tree failure, 4 p.m. on February 14th. That incident there, it did affect a couple of hundred PSE customers, and it unfortunately impacted our peers at Tanner Electric Cooperative. That line that fell, it fell into a Bonneville Power Administration BPA's part of the line, but we have some lines that run underneath it. So when that tree fell, it got both the BPA lines as well as some of our underbuild, what we call underbuild. And so that's where it gets a little complicated, unfortunately, as we try to restore powers. We try to send crews, and we have multiple ownership. We have to issue what's called working clearances, so we can provide assurances to the men and the women in the field that there's no possible way power can get restored while they're working. And so we have to, we isolate, we test, we ground, and then we issue what are called working clearances. And there's multiple crews at play here. And that collaboration and coordination can get pretty complex. And to be completely honest with you, in the February incident, there's room for there's opportunity for improvement in our coordination and collaboration with BPA and with Tanner Electric. So we have a meeting scheduled with our operations folks to make sure that in future incidents, it goes smoother. We got there, it was safely restored, but I just recognize there's some opportunities for improvement. And I know Tanner Electric is very interested in meeting with us as well. And I'm looking forward to those meetings with BPA as well. Okay, is there a way to move the video? Yeah, appreciate that. What I wanted to do with this slide is I wanted to talk about North Bend reliability. And on the very left-hand side, the red box, what I'm showing you are the 4 distribution circuits that come out of the North Bend substation and provide power to all the various homes near the North Bend substation. I list the miles of overhead and the miles of underground. And actually, you'll see that 60%, believe it or not, circuit miles in North Bend is underground. Where this region faces some of its largest challenges, once again, are tree failures into the transmission system from off right-of-way tree failures. What I want to highlight here is this upper left graph shows what we call SAIDI. This is the amount of customer minutes of interruption divided by the number of customers. So you can think of this as the average duration of a power outage per customer, per incident. So in the blue lines, that's North Bend. In this case, this is North Bend 1, 2. That's one of those distribution circuits. And the orange or almost red color, that's our PSE performance across all of our territory. So how are we doing in North Bend compared to the general PSE, what's called system average interruption duration indice? And you'll see that in some cases, we're outperforming PSE in general, and in other cases, we're underperforming. Higher is worse, right? Higher is longer outage durations per customer. So in regards to what we're doing going forward, there's a few things we're doing. So there's 2 distribution circuits, 12 and 16, where we're behind on our trimming cycle on those 2. We are going to be on cycle this year. That's part of the plan. And not only that, but following these incidents, we are also adding additional focus and additional funding to address hazard trees as best we can in those areas. So I'm really excited that we're able to move some funding in to address hazard trees. It really is a big challenge in many parts of our territory. And it really is an area where all utilities in areas like ours, we need help from private landowners. When you have dying trees or trees that are hazardous, we need help. We need help in addressing those in general. We're also looking at what's called a transmission automation scheme, which would allow, if there's a fault on one side of the transmission system, it'll detect and isolate and then reroute transmission power to the substation that it serves. I mentioned we're scheduled to meet with Bonneville Power and Tanner Electric to talk about how the January and February incidents went. As well, we're doing a root cause analysis on why the equipment failed, particularly in the February incident number 1, where we had multiple pieces of equipment failed as we tried to restore power to customers. And I wanted to leave time for questions. I hope that helps. Happy to answer more questions.
Yeah, can you go over just generally, you said you're behind on a couple tree trimming that you want to catch up on. Can you explain just what's the general protocol Or what is your typical tree trimming protocol? How you are identifying sites? Is it just on an annual cycle or based on topography?
Yeah, thank you for that. So 2 out of the 4 distribution circuits, we are behind in, we're a year behind in due to resource constraints. And what we did to mitigate for that is we did what's called, it's not ideal, and we are going to be back on plan this year, but we did what's called hot spotting, where we'll patrol the line and we'll look for areas where tree trimming needs to be done to alleviate without that full tree trimming within our right of way, within the right of way corridor. Hazard trees, I've mentioned those a couple times. Hazard trees are trees that are unhealthy or are identified by an arborist as being dangerous that lie outside of the right of way. If it's inside the right of way, it's gone. It's not gonna, we have the right to remove that, and we're gonna remove that. So hazard trees are the big challenge there. It takes an arborist with boots on the ground. It's very labor intensive to identify. And then, of course, I'm sorry to say it, but we see healthy trees fail in some of our strong windstorms in the Northwest. So it's not possible to identify every potential tree failure that's going to occur.
So when you're doing that though, are you communicate, because you mentioned you need help from private landowners. How is that getting communicated to private landowners? 'Cause I'm sure there's people all over North Bend who have no idea they have a potentially risky tree, but maybe would act, you know.
We do have some outreach efforts to raise that awareness. Also, when we identify them, we begin working with the landowner immediately. We're also beginning some collaborations with different state agencies, Department of Natural Resources. So it's local and state as well as private landowners. All of that collaboration needs to occur.
Yeah, I want to add back on, how many of the outages were related to trees off property or off the right of way? And the reason I ask that is in 2012, we did a study the same thing when this happened. And that was one of the clear things, is to make sure that we continually trim. So it sounds like it's got behind that. So how many did that affect ultimately on the power failure?
So for these outages, we are not behind on our high voltage trimming. It's just those 2 distribution. This year, not only are we moving some funds in for hazard tree work on the distribution, we're also doing that on the transmission system, which is where these January and February incidents what resulted, the tree failures in January and February. And Mill Pond Road, that comes out south, you all know, I'm sure, but out of Snoqualmie and down south, that is one area where we have a lot of troubles, and we'll be putting a very aggressive approach on the hazard trees. But for the high voltage lines, the transmission lines, we are not behind trimming. These unfortunately were tree failures, entire tree failures, not errant branches. Or when you get behind tree trimming, your biggest risk is grow-ins, where if you don't hotspot, you can start to face where the trees are literally growing into the power lines and could begin arcing is the concern. What we're talking about here are whole tree failures, failures of the tree into the line. Tree trimming and getting back on cycle will mitigate, will certainly mitigate for grow-ins and potential arcing from vegetation contacts.
Christina, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. I have 2 questions. So looking at some of the data, and you touched on root cause for the substation failures.
Yeah.
But in general, for North Bend, useful life of this remaining of the substations, how old is the equipment, and how much at risk are we as far as, getting close to them being,
Mm.
need to replace?
I prepared a lot of information for tonight, but exact age of equipment I didn't.
Or-
That is not the issue and the risk we're facing of aging equipment. Those voltage regulators did not fail because they were past an age.
Okay,
That's the hard thing of a voltage regulator equipment on a distribution switch that failed. This is equipment that has, it's different per equipment, but 50+ years of life in it. And you may face weather conditions or high loading conditions and have a failure in a piece of equipment that is well within its life as stated by the vendor. We're not facing that problem out here in North Bend.
okay. My second question just is, and Alan alluded to some efforts in 2012, but what can the council and the city do to help PSE and Tanner, if that's, but PSE going forward? Is there anything that we could help you with?
I love that. I think I would like to think on that. I really appreciate that question. I do think there's an opportunity to partner. Thanks for that.
Yes, thank you for presenting. My question is, how much of the lines are going through private property, if you know that percentage? And I guess to back that up, how many miles or acres, or how do you look at that? And to add on to that, are they allowed to not have you on their property if they don't want to?
So if we were to just pick a place on the transmission system, that's probably a bad example I gave because it looks like that's probably not private land there, but we'll have a right of way, we'll have a legal right to operate the electrical system, and that's typically on the high voltage lines, 50 feet. The private land I'm talking about would border outside of that right of way. And so I don't have statistics ready of how much would be private land versus when we identify a hazard tree, it's private land, and we routinely, unfortunately, face opposition to remove trees on somebody's land, right? It's easier to understand that when it's you being faced with that question. But if there's a tree that is of declining health and an arborist determines that this really should be removed, we begin a legal process to compensate the private landowner to be able to remove their tree on their land. Sometimes it's smooth.
The arborist, is there potential for you to, it sounds like you need more, to hire more arborists to go out and check for hazardous trees?
It's the number of arborists is really not the constraint. It's really is the negotiation with landowners more than anything. I mean, getting out and identifying hazard trees is tedious work. But I would say the most expensive, tedious part of it is the negotiation with the landowner, by far, on that. Yeah.
Anyone, it's Mark.
Yeah, thank you both for coming before us. The smallest of things as in terms of communication, and Mr. Larson, I appreciate your ongoing outreach. I know you're working very hard at it. But I'm a visual thinker, so I took your nice write-up on hours and kind of put it even on a calendar, just a little bar chart, and it sure helped me appreciate the time of the outage and how the 2 days are related to each other. It's a pretty simple thing that might help with your communication efforts. So I see, I've stated before, I get this is a mountain community, and that's part of why we love to live here. We've spent most of our time this evening talking about the events and the causes, and you've done a superb job of that. I see, and I've said before, there's proactive actions. What can you do ahead of time? We know what's coming. We can see it coming. It's planning, and then the event or the causes that you're above reproach in your response. Quite frankly, you have crews out, you have people out in conditions that are untenable, and I very much appreciate that. It's not lost on me. that you're out there even before the storm stops, trying to fix these things. So kudos. And then there's reactive, what happens afterwards, and that's part of what this is. Here we are reacting. That's why you're here. And so again, I appreciate your time. I do wish there were more conversation then about the proactive piece. You mentioned organizational challenges and you're working on those. I haven't heard a lot about the grid, the infrastructure. There is a note in what was sent out that I'm just going to quote. The North Bend substation also sits on the eastern edge of PSE's service territory, which means no backup circuits are present to feed customers from the east during an outage, which results in longer restoration times. That's not news. I wish it weren't true.
Yeah.
I just haven't heard any conversation about grid long-term, and you know, I expect you have folks in Olympia, and this stuff starts from the top. There's so many overlapping circles that make it such that we even have power in our homes. So again, it's not lost on me, but there's this tension between expectations and safety, and your job in helping those, you know, conditions exist. So there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. If I may, you raise a great point there, and I'd like to elaborate just a little bit on that so that we can all be on the same page. Sitting at the foothills of the Cascade, the comment that's written in there is a recognition that North Bend is bookended with the mountains. If we were in Bellevue, there's 360 degrees around. We have a lot of options to what's called field switching, where we can go out and you might be supplied power from the south. And if this fails, we can go out and connect power from the west or from the north. We're inherently and geographically limited in some regards from the mountain range being right there. Actually, the incidents in January and February, especially February, where I explained we were trying to restore power from other paths, we were supplying power to North Bend customers from Mount Si substation and from Snoqualmie. So the equipment here in Mount Si, for instance, was doing double duty for much of that February 13th incident as we were trying to supply power to North Bend from Mount Si, because this substation was offline for that repair of that transmission switch. So thank you for all of that.
Any more questions from council? Brendan?
Thank you, Your Honor. Some of my questions may be a little bit more tactical, you know, resident kind of ground-based questions, but let me go through a few of them here. When you mentioned hotspotting, which was a neat idea, I like the name of it. What's the frequency of hotspotting? Is that an annual occurrence, a monthly, quarterly, biannual? What?
Multiple times a year, we have patrols where we'll have first response electrical line workers who are out looking for places where, again, we need to trim back the trees. Again, we're talking growth towards the line now versus a tree failure.
Okay. And then when talking about the barriers that you mentioned with communicating with property owners, which is reasonable and understandable, what is that communication cycle like between PSE and the residents? And I'm assuming this is a proactive step that you all are taking to contact them based on hotspotting intelligence. Would that be right?
Yeah, and I will say there's kind of two parts to that question. There's the raising of awareness in general. And we do some outreach there. That's something I'm going to take back, and I'm going to challenge ourselves if there's more we need to do on that. But secondly is once a tree is identified that we know is off right away, that's where the direct communication with that landowner begins. So there's kind of two aspects to that outreach.
And is that usually like knocking on a door, email, snail mail? How does that work?
It is. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, we have a team that works on that and makes contact with the customer and explains the situation. We'll meet on site if we need to meet on site and begin talking about what we're seeing and what we would like to see removed if there's a hazard tree.
Is there a point where you abandon that pursuit? So for example, a non-responsive property owner or somebody who's defiant, I mean, what's the step that you take when you say, wait, we've got a tree that needs to come down, otherwise it's gonna wipe out our group?
Yeah.
And this person's not cooperative.
I'm gonna be a little bit careful because I'm gonna get over my ski tips a little bit. There is a legal process there. I know we've had to go there before. But I couldn't speak in great clarity to that. Maybe that's something I can gather information on and bring back.
That's perfect. And then when we're thinking about, and thank you for the presentation, by the way, and I appreciate the mapping. We focused the conversation tonight on the high voltage outage. What about other types of outages, right? So my assumption here is just looking at the red lines, that's what we're talking about. But there's probably fingerlings that come off of those lines, and we have outages on those fingerlings. So when you look at the coupling of the main events with minor events, where does North Bend stand? I mean, it seems like we have a lot of outages that are random as well as the big ones.
Yeah.
So that's kind of question one is, what do you, when you look at our entire community with coupling all the different
Yes.
outages,
Yep.
where do we stack up on that?
Yep. So great. It's an excellent question. So your question is on outages on the distribution system, the lower voltage that is right outside of your home. And although 60% of the North Bend distribution is underground, that overhead still faces, but still the leading factor there is vegetation. That's not necessarily whole tree failures. That's errant branches during windstorms, and bird animal is the second biggest one. We'll have critters get into equipment and cause short circuits and faults. Those are the two biggest. Vegetation still number one, even on the distribution, and then bird animal.
Okay.
So, meat
And
and
then
vegetables.
meat and vegetables. I love it.
Yeah.
So given that we have these hotspot analyses that you're running, you're on an annual cycle, twice a year, it sounded like, just to go through the high voltage. How much of the distribution area is included in your inspection of the community, and what sort of cadence does that inspection occur?
So the distribution is that's done typically on, it depends. So it depends if it's urban or rural. So it's a 3-year cycle or a 6-year cycle for the tree trimming. And it's during the tree trimming when we have resources out that we're doing that hazard tree inspection as well. Hot spotting occurs through patrols of a different set of resources, looking for those grow-in potentials.
Is that coupled with the high voltage? Like in my mind's eye, what I see is trucks driving around your red line, going around spotting stuff, right? And there's a regular cadence on that, and there's the hot spotting, however that works. But then when you're getting into the distribution, are those separate inspections, or how does that work with the overall mapping of the area for risks?
They're separate inspections, but if there's anything observed as they're driving through distribution, they turn that stuff in 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when thinking about circling back to the outdated comment, infrastructure, of course, I'm sure you can appreciate, I'm sure PSE can greatly appreciate what Pacific Gas and Electric had to go through with wildfires based on some bolt that broke, right? So general public fear is this aging infrastructure, right? We had public testimony to that earlier, which is reasonable. It's a reasonable concern. It sounds like from the high voltage infrastructure that we have, there's no fear for aged or outdated beyond life expectation of the infrastructure. How about within the distribution area?
My comment would be very similar as far as age of equipment goes. Yes. And we have an inspection program for our poles that looks at the health of the pole, looks at the aerial equipment. If we look at the high voltage system and we look over the last 3 years, there's been one outage of medium and large outages. One outage caused from equipment failure was a 30-minute outage. Everything else And so I'm not saying the risk is zero.
Mhm.
Everything else has been tree failures into the transmission system. So I'm just stacking the risks, and what I worry about, I start with the off right of way trees.
Okay. And then this last question, and then there's a comment. This one is just more, ground level, community, water a hole conversations. Are there any policies in PSC that actually prohibit or prevent or stall or delay proactive inspections and taking care of things within the infrastructure? Meaning, do you wait for, are you more inclined to wait for something to happen before you fix it? Are there internal policies that say, do that? Don't go out and fix things and be proactive about it? Are there policies that are internal that dictate that?
Not at all. Not at all. And, wildfire was a risk that was brought up earlier. And we're working really, really, really hard to do everything we can to mitigate for the risk of wildfire. One of the things we do is we do pre-season patrols that are incremental to everything else we've discussed tonight. Looking for any going into wildfire season, and then at times in the middle of the season, looking for any signs where we could have an ignition event.
Yeah, and I hope you can appreciate where that kind of perception comes from. People driving up and down the same road, seeing trees laying on power lines for a long time, right? Like a year. Like I could drive you around town and say, okay, well, that's weird. It's never been cut. So when you have that kind of actual real world observation that folks see,
Yeah.
and then there's no tending to that or maintenance of that, it lends itself to lead to this perception that essentially we're being ignored until an outage occurs.
Got it.
Right. And so then there's this thought that, well, maybe PSC just steps back until something occurs. So hopefully you can appreciate that. I would like to say thank you very much for this. And I appreciate what I feel is a high degree of transparency in this communication
Thank
and
you.
opening yourself up for this kind of commentary and this Q&A for us, as well as for the public. Mr. Larson, your communication has been fantastic on email, so I appreciate that. I can't thank you enough for that open communication and open transparency. So I appreciate that. Plus, I love the app. I love the reporting capabilities of outages. I feel like it's very responsive. It responds in a reasonable amount of time saying, okay, yes, it's been notified. There's a truck on the road. Here's the reason for the outage. We expect this. And then I get text messages. So I appreciate that whole interaction as well. So I just didn't want to hammer you with a bunch of questions without some sort of compliment. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Torgerson? Yeah.
All of us have a comment today. First of all, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I know this is a difficult subject. It's, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. They're upset. And they're concerned about the future. One is the power grid. I mean, we're talking about getting rid of gas and we can't have a consistent electrical grid. And do we have enough power on our grid here in North Bend when we have power outages, it's -10 out and they're asking us to conserve? A lot of people are not happy about that. I heard it. I do like what everybody here has said. All the council has some great questions. I appreciate all those questions. They're the same questions I had, and I'm sure our community had as well. I do feel like we need to do more proactive in this whole area. And maybe you guys do that in other areas in King County. And maybe because we're on the end, we don't have as much proactive. But we are a different breed out here. We have probably a lot more trees than other areas. And now this is going to sound a little different, but my dad was a fireman and they literally went around all the streets and they mapped out the streets. So when there was an emergency, they were there and they knew where it was. And I'm feeling like you guys on occasion do that. And it's a little like you do it for this reason and you look at that and then you have a 6-year program and you do that. I mean, I'm not sure if that's enough for our area. Like we need to have every year going out and mapping it out. And then my other question is, as far as landowners and having trees, can they, if they see a tree that they think is a problem, is there a number they can call and go,
Yes.
I need you to come out and make, I'm sure people don't know that that's an option if that's true. So
Yes, we do have that program. And as I said, Mr. Elwood, I'm gonna go back. That's one of the things I'm taking back to understand better what our outreach is in that regard. I do know that if a customer identifies a hazard tree, we'll come out, we'll take that call, we'll come out and take a look at it. And we're happy to send a resource out for that.
Okay, great. Yeah. I know a couple years ago in a storm, and it was a nasty storm. I think it was a freezing storm. It was a scary storm. And I'm looking out my window and I see these guys out there cutting trees in front of my yard. I'm like, oh my God, that's dangerous. So I definitely have a empathy for those guys, because I was like, this is not good. And lightning can come down. I don't know. And they were just cutting away, and they did it fast, and that was pretty amazing. But maybe we can be more proactive instead of a middle of a storm. But thank you very much for coming.
And Mr. Tremolata, I think you have a question?
Yeah, one thing we haven't touched on, which I want to give you the chance to speak to, because a large portion of our city is on Tanner. On the January 18th event, so that was the substation that feeds into, or the line that feeds into the Tanner substation.
Yep.
They were down, right? And so, and I want to make sure you have a fair shot at kind of explaining how it went, how that occurred, and what might change in the future with the relationship of Tanner. Because they sent out a notice to Tanner residents, right, and said that they were on site attempting to assist, but they couldn't. And that was a contract agreement that you had. I think Patelco was the group. How can we, for the residents here that are on Tanner, right? This is clearly a symbiotic relationship.
Yep.
Well, when you're talking outage during an ice storm, this is a massive public safety issue. We've got folks that rely on this for their health, and not everyone has generators. How can we assure our residents that are on Tanner that we're going to have an improved relationship with Tanner, or what exactly occurred there that they couldn't assist, and could they have been helped?
So great. This is a great topic. And I have a lot of thoughts on this one. And there's a few areas for improvement, but I want to address and I know there was some social media activity as well. So PSE, for someone to work on PSE system, that is what is an outside contractor. There's a couple opportunities for that. One, we're part of a Western Regional Mutual Assistance Group. And that's an organization that has resources that have been vetted for safety and are qualified journey line workers, and they're part of a mutual assistance group that we support. We send resources when asked, and we make asks to the Western Regional Mutual Assistance Group. So when we need more resources, we are not shy about pulling that trigger. The other one is more of a PSE contracting approach, where we have 200 line companies across the country and into Canada that we utilize if we get hit in a big storm. And sometimes we're taking the risk, and we're rolling crews before the weather's even hit. If we have confidence in the storm, the public doesn't see it. We have resources parked. And sometimes we have to eat that bill if we're wrong on resources. I've personally been wrong more times than I would like to say, but been right a lot too. To get on that list of contractors, first of all, there's the legal paperwork side and setting up a contract. There's training. We have a switching and clearance standard that if a crew is able to work on our system, they have to be trained on how to safely take a working clearance from our control center. And then there's a safety orientation, and then we vet them for safety. So no prior issues with safety incidents, no drug issues. And we have 200 of those companies, as well as a Western Regional Mutual Assistance Group. It's not simply ever going to happen for safety reasons that we're going to just in the middle of an event plop someone to work on our system. We're just never going to do that. We have to put safety first. One of the opportunities for us to talk with Tanner Electric is to see if we want to get them coupled in as a set of resources, do it the right way, officially. Did I hit everything you wanted, or?
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to give you a chance to speak to that, because obviously half the community got that correspondence from Tanner and you weren't a part of that. So,
Yep.
but I do think that's a great step to open the conversation with Tanner.
Yep.
For everything we've heard tonight. So thank you.
You bet.
Did I miss anybody? No, no. I just want to thank you so much for your open conversation with us tonight. Most appreciated. And thank you, council, for your honestly, very thoughtful questions. You answered a lot of mine too. So thank you so much. And if I can go on the record to say that Councilmember Colin arrived around 7:06 tonight. Okay, we're going to jump into our next presentation. Tonight we have Jessica Self, and she brought a friend, by the way. North Bend Downtown Foundation Executive Director. She's present to provide an update for the North Bend Downtown Foundation. Jessica, will you please come to the podium? And thank you for your.
So I'm Brittany Larson. I'm the president of the North Bend Downtown Foundation. And the North Bend Downtown Foundation actively builds community, supports economic development, and champions downtown revitalization. Next. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay.
That works.
I'm not the loudest person, but I am the clumsiest.
Okay.
So again, I'm the president. Our treasurer is Jason Glazier. Our secretary is Lori Hay. We have Lucas Haynes as our past president. Sharon Hockenberry, Haley Raff, Brian Davis, James Henderson, and Jessica Self is our executive director.
And yes, thank you for the next slide. We'll just keep saying next slide at the end. We are wanting to tell you what Washington Main Street is because the foundation is trying to become Main Street accredited by the end of 2025. So the Washington Main Street program is a state organization based on preservation-based economic development of downtowns. It's centered on a 4-point approach. If you can go to the next slide, please. Design, economic vitality, organization, and promotion. And if you can go to the next slide, please. The first of the 4-point approach, we're talking about the Economic Vitality Committee. And each of the 4 points is an actual committee. So again, committee, we love people in our committees. So economic vitality is the core of a Main Street community. It involves taking a proactive, collaborative approach to building and growing a diverse economic base through smart new investment, cultivating a robust ecosystem for small businesses, focusing on the unique assets of our community and promoting business resiliency. And with our committee, we have our chairperson at the moment, who's Sharon Hockenberry, who is on our board. We have actually a meeting tomorrow if you'd like to join us and are interested in that committee. What we're working on is putting together a survey to put out to all the businesses to provide crucial feedback so we can really focus on what they want us to focus on. We're also working on inviting experts to talk to businesses. So we already had actually Chief Lynch come out last November and talked about theft and safety during the very high shopping season. We just had Recology come out and speak about the changeover April 1st and learned a ton of the amazing things that will be happening for the businesses and residents. And we're very excited to have Business Impact Northwest to come out and discuss technical assistance support for local businesses. And that's actually, there's a typo on this. This is May 14th. So if you're interested in that, put that on your calendar on May 14th. But we're excited because it will be at the Seattle Mountain Rescue Center. And we'll also hear from them too. And another thing the committee is working on is in conjunction with the city of North Bend and the Snow Valley Chamber of Commerce to bring a business connector event to North Bend on May 1st, which I think we're going to try to have it right in here.
So our design committee plays a key role in shaping the physical image of downtown North Bend as a place attractive to shoppers, investors, business owners, and visitors. Design means getting Main Street in a top physical shape, capitalizing on its best assets, such as historic buildings, pedestrian-oriented streets, and is just part of the story. Main Street's physical appearance affects the decisions shoppers, investors, and visitors make. Design activities also include instilling good maintenance practices in the commercial district. Our chairperson is Haley Raff. Our next upcoming meeting is April 10th at 6 p.m. We host monthly cleanup meetup events, which began February 14th, Show Downtown a Little Love, and March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. Our upcoming events are April 21st and 22nd all day with the city of North Bend, and many more planned throughout the year. We also have a planned mural going up behind the Iron Duck Public House, and that will begin in late spring, painted by Sarah Hughes from A Pinch Different, funded by a grant from Snoqualmie Tribe and Craig Glazier. And we're writing for grants for many other projects.
And we also have the promotions committee, which is the big committee. I say big as in doing a lot of things. We actually need more people on that committee. Again, people, we love people. So the promotions committee, promotion positions are downtown as the center of the community and hub of economic activity and events, while creating a positive image that showcases our community's unique characteristics, culture, history, and defining features. Promotions help support downtown North Bend's reputation as the place for residents and visitors to shop, work, live, have fun, and invest. And our chairperson is Lori Hay, who's also our secretary. And our upcoming meeting is April 9th. And one of the things that we're really focusing on, if you follow us on Facebook and or Instagram, you see that we share a lot of businesses social media posts on Facebook and Instagram, not only in their feed, but also in stories. So we do a lot of reach out to remind them to tag us so we can share some love. We also do a ton of planning and execution of community events. So the past events that we have done are the downtown block party, Sip Said Sigh last fall. We did Trick or Treat Street, Holidays, and we just got through the Real Twin Peaks weekend.
So mentioning Block Party, we had over 3,000 attendees in 2023, 78 vendors, a beer and wine garden, live music and community performances, a kids zone for youth activities, and over a dozen sponsors with more planned for 2024.
And then we had Sip Suds and Sigh, and we had 12 local wine, cider, and liquor vendors. We also had 10 merchant locations that hosted. We had 4 live music performances, and we had over 200 attendees come throughout. We even had people come who didn't purchase tickets and just enjoyed the live music.
And closely following Sip Suds and Sigh, we had Trick or Treat Street with over 1,500 attendees. 60 participating merchants, yard games, outdoor music, 8 participating organizations, and awards for participant costumes and decor. Downtown was packed.
We saw some faces. And then Holidays. This was my first Holidays out here, and it was magical. We had over 1,000 attendees. I know I saw some of your faces, and I think everyone knows there were just smiles everywhere. We were super excited. So over 1,000 attendees. We had 13 participating organizations, the sponsors for that event. Our tree lighting was with a donated tree and donated lights. We had many community performances actually throughout from the Snoqualmie Valley, music and dance. We also kicked off Holidays with a free movie from the North Bend Theater at 4 o'clock, which was amazing because most of the people who went to the movie then came out to the event. And there was complimentary coffee, cocoa, s'mores at the fire pits. We also coordinated the timing with the city of Snoqualmie. So they were before ours, and then we had ours, and we actually heard from many people that they went to both of them. And we look to do that for this year too. We are currently planning at this point in time, Sip Sud Sigh, which is coming at May 18th, which is in less than 2 months at this point. We've been diving into planning Block Party. We're also talking Sip Sud Sigh for the fall, definitely Trick or Treat Street, making that even bigger and better, and Holidays. And also, again, working with the city to stagger the times.
And some of the organizations that we're collaborating with are North Bend Art and Industry, the Historic Downtown Snoqualmie Merchant Association, Valley Center Stage, Seattle Mountain Rescue Center, Snow Valley Chamber of Commerce, and Jazz Clubs Northwest. And here's the most exciting part of our presentation. Here's our 2024 NVIDIA work plan updates. We're working on updating our bylaws. We're creating committee charters for each of those 4-point approach committees. We will be attending a Main Street board training following our board meeting on March 25th. And we are attending City of North Bend Council and EDC meetings when possible.
We're also working on creating a monthly newsletter, so we'll get that out to everybody when that is ready to go. Currently, we are emailing to get the word out, plus working on getting the updates out on social media. We also hold bi-monthly merchant meetups, which are after hours every other month. And we started those in December. And so those are more in the evening. And then we also do bi-monthly merchant meetings we started in January that are actually held in the morning. So we can try to get the business owners at different times when they work. Like Brittany said, we just started our monthly meetup cleanup events, which we started Valentine's Day. And if you can come out to one of them, we'd love to have you. And obviously working hard on the community events. So just getting through Real Twin Peaks and currently Sipsett Side Block Party Trick or Treat Street. And yes, we are already working on holidays, even though it is March.
And we'd like to thank the city of North Bend for your continued support and collaboration. We can't do what we do without you guys.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Jessica and Brittany from council? Yep. Just a quick question. Well, first of all, thank you. It brings so much community focus with all of these events. And my question is, I know it takes a lot of work and resources for all of those events. How do you measure success? You know, you talked about attendees, but there's probably some other elements of that. How do you measure those?
Well, beginning this year, we've started post-event surveys for both merchants and attendees. So we can get better metrics and better feedback rather than just, you know, what we've heard and what we've seen on social media. So we hope to have a much better handle on how the community would like for us to plan events in the future after this year's feedback.
And also just with the amount of sponsors and organizations that we're starting to collaborate with, we're basing it off of that and being able with the cross promotions that we're able to do. And we're able to kind of track it that way too. And of course, we all know I love social media and we're able to do a lot of tracking that way too. And knowing that we're able to not like you said, not just track the amount of people who are coming, but we're also able to track who's actually interacting with everything.
Any other questions? Brendan? Okay.
Thank you. I'm thinking about 4th of July and having 4th of July event. I think our community would love it. And I had a couple ideas, but whatever works.
Do you want to join our promotions committee, Heather?
A fun run where everybody dresses up in red, white, and blue and brings your tricycle or whatever and goes around the roundabouts. And
believe me, I love events. So anything, I mean, we have the events that we talked about are the ones that are contracted with the city right now. So we can always add more contracted events and we can talk about that. But I mean, I've been already talking to a bunch of different merchants and bringing up a bunch of different types of events too that aren't as large as something like 4th of July. But honestly, I've been thinking about that. So that would be an amazing thing. So yes, I love that idea.
Come join us.
Yeah. Heather, come.
Okay. Ms. Torgerson.
I have a quick question, hopefully. I know one of our main goals is to become Main Street. Do we have like a game plan yet? And how many times are we meeting with the Main Street people and you know, kind of rubbing elbows and hoping they like us kind of thing?
So do we ever? I have a 21-page document for Main Street America, which is actually a much larger goal than Main Street Washington. And we do have a game plan. However, we just learned that we are this close to Main Street Washington accreditation. Yeah, but we're gonna go for the big one.
So yes, we were very close and
And we couldn't have done it without.
and we actually are, well, we actually just went to Cle Elum yesterday and met with the executive director of the Cle Elum Downtown Association. And we learned a lot about the fact that she was actually very impressed with how far along we've come and everything we've been doing in the short amount of time that we've been doing this. So that was great to hear. And yes, there are many plans to be doing more of the Main Street accreditation events, but we are talking about trying to apply sooner than later. Yeah.
So one of the things that comes with the Main Street accreditation that I am very excited about is the Main Street tax incentive program. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. And then once we get that and we build a base of people who are going to fund us, we can then use that money to fund capital improvement projects for the facades in downtown. And that's what Cle Elum's doing. And if you guys haven't been down there lately, they are doing some really cool things. They're
They
actually
are,
narrowing
yeah.
their streets, which shocked me.
Slow people down to appreciate the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and there's so much new stuff there. Just amazing.
Well, that's exciting. I can't wait to hear more. Awesome. Thanks.
Any other questions for There's Brendan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Not a question, just more of a comment. Thank you for what you do. It's great to see the North Bend Foundation grow and pick up momentum, and that's really important for our community. I love seeing the attendee counts, and I love seeing the attendee counts grow. I love that almost every other line was merchant this, merchant that, which is the core of your focus, which I appreciate. So thank you, and thank you to all the volunteers and however many people are helping you keep it going. It's fantastic to hear these great things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And anybody else I missed? No. Okay, thank you so much for all that you're doing. Please let your crew know and all the volunteers how much we care and how grateful we are. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, at this time, I think we have one more presentation, and guess what? It's me. So I hope you're okay with that. Don't run away. You like that, huh? Oh, I'm taking a big swig now. Here we go. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Before I launch into a really thorough, conversation about what's happening in North Bend and how sincerely great our town is, I just want to take a moment to thank our staff. You're amazing people. You have welcomed me with open arms. I've enjoyed every minute I've been here so far. I love this job. I'm grateful to the community to help make this path so I could be here to be your mayor. It's an amazing thing. So I'm always grateful. Okay, with that, let's get to it. This is my first day of the city, as you know. Council members, citizens, property owners, and staff, my heart is filled with pride and hope tonight as we come together to reflect the state of our beloved city of North Bend and look forward to what lies on the horizon. 3 months ago, I was sworn in as your mayor, both as a council member before this and now. I have emphasized the importance of working hand in hand with our council, staff, project partners, and you, our residents. I'm confident that our shared commitment to cooperation and unity will bring us much success this year. In February, we convened for our annual council retreat, a pivotal moment where we laid the groundwork for the year ahead. We engaged in thoughtful discussions and together set ambitious goals with a focus on improving transportation, bolstering infrastructure resilience, fostering inclusive community development, expanding green spaces for all to enjoy, addressing housing affordability challenges, and ensuring the safety and security for every resident. It is within this context that I present to you a forward-looking state of the city of North Bend. I'll begin with infrastructure and transportation. 2024 is a year full of engineering design, paving the way, quite literally, for groundbreaking on many infrastructure and transportation projects. In fact, at this very moment, there are 28 active capital and transportation improvement projects moving forward in the city. Each project is being carefully designed with safety, connectivity, the environment, and of course, our community in mind. Expect to see fresh pavement overlays on Ballarat Avenue, Cedar Falls Way, and Ryberry Way this year. And soon you will hear of plans for a connection between West North Bend Way and Bendigo Boulevard South, called the South Fork Avenue Extension Bypass Project. The project will reduce traffic volumes and emissions impact within our historic district, and it will improve safety and access to Interstate 90. In design phase this year are 3 roundabouts, yes, roundabouts, with construction planned for 2025 through 2027. At Mount Si Boulevard and State Route 202, at Mount Si Road and North Bend Way, and at North Bend Way, Northwest East Street, 8th Street, and South Fork Avenue. In addition to traffic calming improvements, we have several pedestrian connectivity projects both in design and construction this year. Projects like the shared use bridge over the South Fork Snoqualmie River and the Tanner Trail extension on East North Bend Way will provide you with new ways to get around town safely. The council continues to support the Sidewalk Gap program. Every year we evaluate sidewalks, identifying the highest need for repair. This year, the city will tackle 4 more sidewalks on East North Bend Way, Northwest 14th Street, Orchard Drive, and Cedar Falls Way. Soon we will be celebrating the completion of a monumental project, the wastewater treatment plant high priority improvements, phases 1 and 2, almost complete to this day. I think we're at 98% right now. Is that correct? When complete, the project will decrease plant odor. I'm big on that. Improve employee safety and comply with stricter state environmental requirements that protect the Snoqualmie River. The updated plant will also be prepared to accept new capacities such as the Meadowbrook Utility Local Improvement District, otherwise known as a ULID, and potential conversion of older septic systems. This investment in our infrastructure represents the largest capital improvement project the city has produced in a long time. It will serve us for the next 50 years. In February, the council voted unanimously to approve the North Bend Way Complete Street Corridor Plan. The plan establishes a vision for 5 miles of North Bend Way right through the heart of our historic district and heading southeast. It incorporates our community's desire to maintain our rural, small town character, and it looks at ways to create a greater sense of place and safety, things like trails, sidewalks, pedestrian rest areas, gateways, trail crossings, and intersections. Like park master plans, funding for this plan will span several years and will be sourced from developer fees and construction grants and possibly a utility local improvement district. Now, as a resident of our mountain town, chances are that you've heard about local water, where it comes from, who provides it, and the conservation of it. This year is an exciting time for North Bend as we continue to improve our use of this finite resource. Both the city and our other local water purveyor, Salal Water Association, are in process of designing and constructing 2 water interties. By 2025, the interties will be ready to share water, allowing for mutual support in emergencies and providing everyone with the ability to supply water to all property owners in their service areas as is required by state law. On our part, we will continue in our work to decrease system distribution leakage by replacing old leaking water mains. This year, Northwest 8th Street will get a new water main. And you will hear more about that design as it's completed in preparation for a new water main on Northwest 14th Street. Thanks to your help, our community is in the forefront of water conservation. 2024 will mark our 4th year of enacting the Water Conservation Ordinance. Regardless of state mitigation requirements, being mindful of our use of water, simply put, is the right thing to do. By conserving water, we are doing our part to keep the Snoqualmie River healthy, which protects the river and saves you money. In addition, this year, we will be evaluating the accuracy of FEMA's 100-year floodplain maps in North Bend. You will also hear more about design plans to expand the Silver Creek culvert, which will help in decreasing the likelihood of flooding in the Silver Creek neighborhood. Now we will move on to parks. We value our parks and open spaces here in North Bend. They play a critical role in the mental and physical health of our community, and the preservation of green space is always welcome here. Thanks to hardworking staff and deeply committed Parks Commission and Council, 2024 will see more park planning and trail improvements, often in partnership with our local Sideview Metropolitan Parks District, King County Parks, Mountain to Sound Greenway, and others. 3 particularly exciting projects to celebrate this year include the new 4-acre Dahlgren Family Park opening later this spring. Enjoy mountain viewing, playground equipment, a picnic shelter, sand volleyball court, and the trail connection to King County's newly enhanced Tanner Landing Park. The new 32-acre Tenant Trailhead Park, opening mid-April, will offer various levels of mountain biking and hiking trails. Eventually, it will link to the Raging River Trail system. And on the west end of North Bend, I am excited to recreate with many of you as our Parks District opens up new programs and continues their work in hosting agricultural incubator space at the completely rejuvenated and award-winning historic Tollgate Farm Park. I'm happy to add that in February, the council approved grant-funded work to restore Tollgate Forest. It will involve removing invasive weeds and adding back native plants that will help to improve riparian corridor and floodplain across more than 100 acres of our city property and along 3,000 feet of both banks of the South Fork Snoqualmie River. The project will include community volunteer events, and we'd love to see you out there. I look forward to joining you as we all work together to improve our local habitat. I'm going to step into this park update, just take a quick pause and just say thank you. I like to do that, by the way. The council staff and I recognize all community input and volunteerism, all your work that contributes largely to park planning and preservation. One of those realized visions you helped to create is the conceptual master plan for Taylor Park, one that could bring us a plaza, native plantings, a holiday tree, and a splash pad or interactive fountain, all in the heart of our downtown. And to add to this, an exciting update near Taylor Park is McClellan Avenue, a highly visible spot that many of us rely on for parking when shopping or hopping on the historic train. The city is being awarded grant funding to move and lower the rail tracks, which will make a huge impact on parking and appearance of McClellan. Expect to see design plans this year. You also played a big part in developing the conceptual master plan for Riverfront Park with viewpoints, trails, native plantings, and more connectivity. With a council-approved master plan concept for both Taylor and Riverfront Park, staff are now applying for additional grant funding. Grants will be matched with park impact fees and other city resources to permit a phased improvement of these parks. Moving on to community development. Last summer, many of you participated in the first ever citywide community survey. As you know, what was noted and to be of very high importance to residents, increased economic development. We heard you. With the council's direction and the planning of Economic Development Commission's help, staff are focusing resources on bringing new businesses to North Bend that will uphold our live and play where you work philosophy. Expect to see movement on the dual brand Wyndham Hotel. Right now, the closed up portion of the Outlet Mall is undergoing demolition. We anticipate that our first 120 room full service hotel will be under construction this year. On master plan discussions in both East North Bend in Trucktown area and West North Bend near Nintendo. Master plans for both locations will help to preserve community needs such as a quality local jobs and amenities from new office and manufacturing development. On an outdoor recreation marketing campaign, look forward to seeing promotional material that will market responsible recreation opportunities in a variety of ways via visitor guides, websites, and social media. On a small business expansion guide, we are always looking for ways to improve transparency and simplify the process for small business startup and growth, and this tool will certainly help. Your voice throughout all this work is immensely important to council, commissions, staff, and the future of North Bend. Expect more opportunities for feedback this year through commission and council meetings, public hearings, and surveys. On housing affordability and diversity, North Bend must be a city where working people can work and afford a place to live, to raise a family, and eventually to retire. In November, the council approved the purchase of a sale agreement of land for this very purpose. Located downtown, 230 Main Avenue will provide rental homes for local workers, affordable to families making no more than 60% of King County median income. It will help ease the workforce shortage among businesses. Staff are drafting a request for proposals to be presented to the council, and once approved, we will begin work for housing with a housing developer that shares our mission of keeping North Bend an economically healthy and highly livable town. Comprehensive plan update. In addition to ensuring diverse housing that fits the needs of all of our residents, we are working hard to update our guiding documents, the comprehensive plan being one of them. So that we can keep our promise of a healthy North Bend, not just now, but well into the future. Under the requirement of the Growth Management Act, staff and the council have been working to update the 2015 plan. Thanks to hard work, lots of citizen engagement, across collaboration with many organizations, the critical areas, transportation, parks and open space, economic development, and shoreline elements are now complete. This year, you will see updates for land use, housing, utilities, capital facilities, natural resources, energy, and sustainability elements. This year you will see, oh, excuse me. With these updates will be requests for your help. I've said it before and I will say it again. Your feedback, concerns, and expectations do matter. Please join us as more opportunities for feedback arise. We expect to have a fully updated comprehensive plan by the end of the year. On public safety, the council and I are united on many fronts, one of which is public safety. Residents and business owners have expressed concern over recent incidents of crime in town. A council meeting in February, Police Chief Lynch acknowledged growing concerns and gave context to this surge in crime, noting that it is not only in North Bend, it's not only a North Bend problem, in other words, but a larger, much larger Washington State issue. He addressed a pathway moving forward, sharing new and expanded efforts that will combat issues like property crime and traffic violence. One neat collaboration to look forward to is a satellite police station that will be moving into the North Bend Premium Outlet Mall. Thanks to collaborative work between Outlet Mall owners Simon Properties and Snoqualmie North Bend Police and the city, you can expect to see more local police presence in that area. I want to thank Police Chief Lynch and Fire Chief Lane for all their work keeping residents safe. They have supported both departments through a tough winter. We brought our chiefs downtown this month for a well-attended chat with the chiefs event. This form of direct access to the community level is important, and we plan to offer more of these opportunities this year. I thank you for that. A big part of my work as your mayor is working with the neighboring cities. As you may know, the city of North Bend contracts with City of Snoqualmie for police services. Our current contract will end in December 31st, 2024. So we're beginning work with our neighbor city right now to renegotiate a new police services contract and ensure public safety and level of service meet your expectations. Fiscal sustainability. Being fiscally responsible is a duty of our city. And we take it seriously. And this year, North Bend will be one of the few cities in Washington State who have taken a big step forward in safeguarding our financial future with a long-term deep study called a fiscal sustainability analysis. Analysis of this sort will be a real gem for our city, providing a realistic look at our future in a variety of scenarios and identifying strategies for long-term economic development and financial sustainability with each. The study is providing the council with an evaluation tool for peeking into the future, so to speak, and to see what direction a policy may lead with respect to our finances. This first scenario was presented to council in a work study in February. Also, in the way of fiscal responsibility, we will be working this year to develop the biennial budget for 2025 and 2026. The fiscal sustainability study will already be at work providing us with important revenue projections. Staff looks forward to working through the budget preparation process with the council in the coming months, ensuring we do our best in creating a balanced budget that reflects community priorities, infrastructure maintenance, and citywide improvements you can be proud of. And the city received over $2 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, that's known as ARPA. We have been using these funds to support economic development and human services organizations to replenish lost city government revenues and to make investments that support long-term growth and opportunity. This year, listen for updates on ARPA funds that support park improvements, more social services, and tourism efforts. The funds are focused on those in our community that were disproportionately affected by COVID-19 pandemic. In closing, thank you to our council, thank you to our staff, and thank you to all our residents for your support. As we navigate the opportunities and challenges of 2024, let us remember that our greatest strengths lie in our unity. By working together, we will thrive as a vibrant, resilient, highly livable community that we are. Together, we can write the chapter for our future, and it's going to be a remarkable one. Thank you, everybody, tonight. Have a good evening. Hi. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Now we're going to move on to commission and committee reports. Someone else gets to talk. All right. Mark, shall we start with you? Community
Thank you, Your Honor. The Economic and Community and Economic Development Committee met this afternoon at 4 o'clock. We discussed the Meadowbrook Governance ILA, which will be coming back before this body after hopefully being approved by the City Council in Snoqualmie. We'll be revisiting an ordinance on building codes coming forward, as the state did not, or they walked back the building codes that this body adopted earlier this year. So we will need to unadopt those. And then we received some very promising updates from James Henderson on economic development and development projects, some of which the mayor aptly touched on during the fine State of the Union address. We will meet again next month.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Finance and Administration Committee met on March 12th, 4 p.m. in the City Hall adjournment room. We discussed 2 agenda bills which are on tonight's agenda. One concerning an impact fee grant. The other is a motion authorizing contract with FCS for impact fee update. We also had several discussion items. Primarily of interest there is Finance Department objectives, work plan, and Finance and Administration Committee calendar, which was brilliantly presented by Martin, our new finance director. So thank you for that. General fund reserves were another topic. We are currently at 10%, and so there's discussion and perhaps intent to increase the reserves over time. We're waiting for some more insights on that. And then we discussed Clark Nuber Professional Service Agreement. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Ms. Rustick, Public Health and Safety.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. The Public Health and Safety Committee met on March 5th at 4 o'clock in the City Hall adjournment room. Discussion provided Deputy Chief Moffett provided a fire update. Chief Lynch provided an update on the police activities, both the staffing, some of the recent incidents, and as Mayor Miller touched on, the storefront at the outlet mall. We also had a discussion with Chief Lynch regarding some tools that other police forces are using successfully to help them fight crime, and that was the flock camera systems. That was just a preliminary discussion. And then we had a conversation as Mayor Miller shared their update on the police contract. So we had preliminary discussions on that. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's see, Ms. Colon.
Yep. Transportation and Public Works, we met on February 27th at 4 o'clock here in our adjournment room. As usual, it was packed full of lots of projects that we're going to be tackling. We have 3 engineering contracts for transportation capital projects that are needed. We made a motion authorizing engineer contract with Parametrics for the South Fork Avenue Extension and Starfish Roundabout Capital Project. We also motion authorizing engineering contract with PH Consulting for rectangular rapid flashing beacon.
That sounds fun.
It is fun. We had a motion authorizing engineering contract with RH2 for the Tanner Trail Extension Capital Project Transportation. We made a motion authorizing engineering contract with PH Consulting for Cedar Falls and Ballarat Avenue 2024 Pavement Overlay Project. We had a discussion about an idea to remove the no protest sewer agreement tool in the North Bend sewer wastewater treatment plant. We had a presentation 30% drawing for Bendigo SR 202 Mount Si Boulevard Roundabout Project. We did discuss a request from a commercial property developer to vacate of right-of-way. And last but not least, we discussed upcoming tours and invitations to TPW committee members. One of them being the SPU Watershed Tour, which would be August 6th at 12:30. And a tour includes Hobo Springs, Masonry Pool, Cedar River Dam, and Cedar Falls. And also the wastewater treatment plant. They would like us all to come out and see it in mid to late April. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gottel. Work study.
Thank you. The city council participated in a work study February 27th, 2024. We discussed the presentation that was talked about, the fiscal sustainability study and the study overview and growth alternative. It was a fun 90 minutes.
Great. Would you like to discuss East Side Fire and Rescue?
Sure, I'll go right into that. So East Side Fire and Rescue, let me make sure I get the right thing.
No pressure.
No pressure, none whatsoever. I know I pulled this up. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, the East Side Fire and Rescue Board met March 14th, 2024 at our headquarters. We had a special recognition welcoming a new Assistant Fire Chief, Mark Jung. We had our annual board elections for East Side Fire and Rescue Chair and Vice Chair, and lo and behold, they reelected me board chair. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We normal consent agenda, and let me kind of review the next part, which is our fire chief briefing. He talked about on the Bothell RFP, we got a call for Bothell to provide executive level fire administrative services for them. And when they're process of reviewing their RFP, and as of today in a special board meeting, we approved a RFP or a response to the RFP. So we are going to respond to that RFP. Duval commissioners have acted and appointed a board chair. That's kind of good with that relationship. Ecology agreed orders. So last week, East Side Fire and Rescue, the city of Issaquah, and Fairlawn met with the ecology to discuss agreed orders for the lower Issaquah Valley PFAS cleanup site. We're nearing a final agreement, and we anticipate action in the board next month. As some of you may know, we have some PFAS areas within our headquarters that need to be cleaned up. That's one of the areas, and then there are several other locations within Issaquah that need the same thing because firefighting foam was used during training, and so it contaminated some of those before we realized PFAS was not a good thing. We got a picture of a bunch of new apparatuses that we added to the fleet. We purchased a fire marshal vehicle, a shop truck, and a facilities maintenance van. We talked about last week, we celebrated our annual awards at the Snoqualmie Casino in their banquet room. It was a lot of fun, well attended. That was a lot of fun. And then that's all we have for East Side Fire and Rescue.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, Ms. Deming, would you like to provide your report?
And I do the King County Board of Health update.
Yes.
I thank you, Ms. Mayor. King County Board of Health met on February 15th via Zoom at 1 o'clock. They discussed the upcoming 6-year strategic plan. The items to be included are mental health crisis, gun violence prevention, homelessness, and the opioid crisis. They will be having briefings in March and April of 2024, and they are facing a fiscal deficit. The next meeting will be held on March 21st at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. And we might want to move into regional committees at this point then. Anybody have any updates for us? Okay, Mr. Tremolata, take it away.
SCA PIC committee met on March 13th virtually. Two major issues discussed. First was the King County Wastewater Treatment Division is going through their regional wastewater services plan update, which I think would make us feel great about having our own wastewater system because there's quite a few concerns going forward with PFAS, chemical waste that is emerging and pollutants that the system's not ready for. Most specifically, relating to opioids and drug use getting shoved through toilets and what have you. So that's a big concern, and some major capital improvements throughout Seattle and northern shoreline area. So they've got their hands full there. The other item was an update on the crisis care center. So that was a levy passed in February 2023. There's 5 sites. 4 of them will follow the same footprint and plan, and one will be exclusively for youth. It'll be a youth center for folks 18 and under. These sites have effectively different phases of walk-in, drop off from first responders, inpatient, critical care, and post-care. The goal is site selection by 25, with the first one operational by 2026, and all 5 are shooting to be operational by 2030. There was some debate about sort of how these will operate. The process and protocol is still somewhat in the works, but they'll all be medical facilities run as clinics. So in terms of Washington state law with parental rights and notifications, they'll follow current law based on that. And so, yep, that's the main update from SEA.
Thank you, Errol. Anybody else for regional committee reports? Okay, let's go back to.
Your Honor, did you want to do commission reports?
That's where I'm headed. Took me a while to get there. I apologize. Ms. Deming, Planning, Parks and Economic Development Commission report, please.
The Planning Commission met on March 6th and discussed 2 items: land use designation and zoning dockets and requests received by property owners for the city's land use element update, and emergency housing requirements under recent amendments to the Growth Management Act for incorporation into the municipal code amendments that will follow the city's comprehensive plan update. The commission also discussed changes for the commission discussed these changes for incorporation into the proposed draft element. The Parks Commission did not meet in February, and the Economic Development Commission met on February 27th. They welcomed the new commissioner and discussed and reviewed draft small business startup and expansion guides. The guides support a recommendation from the Economic Development Action Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Debbing. Let's move on to introductions. Item 8, AB 4-031, motion authorizing contract with FCS Group for impact fee study. Ms. Deming, back to you. Please provide, if you don't mind.
The proposed contract is for an impact fee study to review the city's impact fees, including bicycle and pedestrian fee, transportation impact fee, park impact fee, and fire impact fee. The bicycle and pedestrian fee was adopted in 2018, the transportation impact fee 2015, the park impact fee 2018, and the fire fee was adopted in 2006. Although these fees are adjusted by CPI annually, they are due for an updated study. Additionally, recent changes in legislation will require us to update our codes, which may create some loopholes we would like to look at through this review, such that a 3-unit multifamily project with 1,000 square feet per unit and a similar project could be built in a single family zone with 2 attached ADUs would have drastically different impact fees collected for a very similar structure under the current process, because ADUs have impact fees exempted. This contract not only looks at updating the study. With the study, we look at alternatives, including proportionate impacts on unit size instead of only the current single-family, multifamily option. This update will implement the Housing Action Plan Strategy 8.2.2, reassess impact fees to ensure they remain adequate and appropriate source of funding, and 8.2.3, consider a rate study to investigate alternative methods for fee structure by square footage, bedrooms, etc., to fund service extensions without overburdening small development projects. This contract is for $99,530 and is offset by the next item on the agenda, a proposed grant for $50,000. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Debbing. Are there any questions from council? Mr. Elwin.
This is a simple question for us, but Ms. Deming, just clarify for the public that impact fees are for new development, not for existing residents, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? Going once, going twice? Okay. All right. If any members of the audience would like to comment on this agenda item, we would invite you to come forward to the podium at this time. If you have requested a combination with city clerk and wish to speak, please raise your hand through the virtual platform and we'll take your comments after in-person comments. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. I don't know if we have anyone online. That's a no. Okay, so with that, let's nobody's running. After I spoke, everybody ran away. And anyway,
would
just kidding,
read
just
into that.
teasing. Thanks a lot. Okay, Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah,
Motion to approve AB 24-031, authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with FCS Group for development impact fee update in a form and content approved by the city attorney in an amount not to exceed $99,530.
do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Elwood, seconded by Ms. Heather, and let's see, yeah, Colin, yes, I know your name. And Mr. Elwood, would you like to comment on your motion?
Nothing to elaborate on other than to say one of the reasons why we put this forward on the main agenda is for council to consider this. Maybe an open debate or open dialogue setting. We have a $50,000 grant that will pay for half of this. The other half, obviously, we'll have to pay for. So we felt it was just a good thing for us to talk about that, as well as shine a light on the idea that we're continuing to look for opportunities in missing middle and workforce housing and so forth. So any sort of direction on that we want to take, felt it was good just to bring that out into the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood, and the unforgettable Ms. Colin. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I think it's a good idea and I have nothing else to say.
Very good. Any other comments from council? Mr. Tremoletta.
Yeah, we discussed this in finance committee. I think important for all council to know as well, this is the study. Then we currently exempt ADUs, and I think that's a discussion to continue on forward. Because I think it is an important discussion that even with the results of the study, that may not impact current homeowners with any ADU future plans. So I think this is a good study, as stated. I'll be supporting it, and we'll see what it says.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, the motion before us is to approve AB 24-031, authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with FCS Group for development impact fee update in a form and content approved by the city attorney in an amount not to exceed $99,530. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's a big blank. So motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 9, AB 24-32, motion of authorizing middle housing grant agreement with Washington State Department of Commerce. Ms. Deming, you're up again.
Thank you. The city council approved a housing action plan in 2023. And as with anything we do, we try and apply for grant funds as they become available when they align with project or plans that are approved by council. As mentioned in the previous item, the housing action plan included 2 strategies to reassess and look at our impact fees. Staff saw a notice for the middle housing grant through Commerce, which allows for, as one of those eligible items, to look at, to revise our impact fee schedule to reflect proportionate impacts of new middle housing units consistent with E2SSB 5258. This includes performing a financial analysis and studies to evaluate alternative methods of calculating proportionate impacts and impact fee amounts. The maximum grant amount is $50,000 and requires no matching funds. However, the cost to update the fees is around $100,000. Staff recommends acceptance of the middle housing grant through the Washington State Department of Commerce. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for providing that report. Council, do we have any questions? That's no. Okay, so if any members of the audience would like to comment on this agenda item, we would invite you to come forward to the podium at this time. If you have requested accommodation with the city clerk and wish to speak, please raise your hand through the virtual platform and we will take your comments after in-person comments. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Nobody home. Okay. Okay. That's always a good thing. All right, Councilmember Elwood, would you please make the motion?
Thank you, Your Honor. Motion to approve AB 24-032, authorizing the mayor to sign the middle housing grant agreement with Washington State Department of Commerce in the final form and content acceptable to the city attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, boy, here we go again. A motion by Mr. Elwood and seconded by Ms. Colwin. Okay, Mr. Elwood, would you like to comment on your motion?
Let's cut the first agenda bill in half by adopting this particular grant funds, and thank you for staff. This is another reason why we wanted to bring this out in the open. Looking for money where it may lie to help us achieve the goals that we want to do. This is exactly that. So I hope this does pass. I'm also, for whatever reason, fascinated with E2 SSB 5258. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Colwin, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I do like receiving grants and looking at alternative options.
Great. Any other council questions, comments? Nothing? Okay, the motion before us is to approve AB 24032, authorizing the mayor to sign the middle housing grant agreement with Washington State Department of Commerce in a final form and content acceptable to the city attorney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to mayor, council, and administrative concerns and initiatives. Let's start with right there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That was a
Not
surprise.
picking on you, I'm
Not
surprising you.
surprising me there.
Good.
I don't have a lot tonight, just, hey, it's beginning to get longer nights. People are out there playing in the streets. Please watch out for that. Please enjoy it. We're starting to see actually buds come up. I saw some of the flowering plum and peach trees coming up, so please enjoy that. But please watch those, our days get longer and the kids get out in the parks and start playing and walking across the streets. Please slow down a little and watch out for everybody. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Rustick.
I don't have anything tonight, so thank you, Mayor.
Oh, okay, and Mr. Jocelyn?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Boy, okay, Errol.
Sure. Just a note from some of my first responder friends. The weather is great. Does not mean we're ready to be running in the river or swimming in the river. Extremely cold, extremely dangerous. Be careful, especially with the kiddos. And I have seen some chatter from the neighborhood about the long lines on the weekend from our downtown when the weather's great. Heed that. It's great. It means our small businesses are flourishing for those winter months where it's a little thinner. So hopefully we can be patient. I think it's great when our businesses are busy and go out and enjoy them.
Ms. Colwin, do you have any comments to make?
Enjoy this beautiful weather. We definitely needed it, and I think it's helps everybody's mental health.
And Ms. Torgerson?
I would just say today I just called Recology and I reduced the size of my garbage can. So this is the time to do it. Otherwise, it's going to be the same garbage can you had before. So just a little reminder there, and enjoy the sun while we can.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood.
Thank you for that reminder on Recology. One, I'd like to call out something that was on the consent agenda, the collective bargaining agreement. I wanted to give a shout out to Lisa, Kendra, Dave, and team for managing that through that contract through to success and bringing parity for our departments. Appreciate that. Appreciate all that you did on that. And also wanted to call out, please check out our city website for city news releases. I'm continually and consistently impressed with that channel. Bree and team, you do a fantastic job of keeping the city up to date on everything that's going on. It's clear, it's concise, it's to the point. It's quick reads, it's digestible, it's awesome. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to give a little shout out to Mr. Henderson for helping us. We're going to get another brew pub in town, the restaurant, and he's bringing businesses along, and we're going to see more opening in the downtown. And there are a number of things kind of in the works that are coming forward. So I think that, we're going to have a lot more to do in town as the summer rolls around. And it's great to see the hotel work starting. So there's some exciting things happening for us. And I just I'm very happy that we have the high quality of staff we have here now. We're able to roll some of this stuff out and deliver. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And let's see, the yard waste recycling program will start Saturday, April 6th from 8 a.m. to noon at Public Works. Program is open on select Saturdays through October and is available to all who reside in 98045 zip code area. To find out more about this program, including a list of days the event is open, acceptable materials, please visit the news section of the city website. The city of Snoqualmie will be hosting Community Emergency Response Team CERT training courses for 5 consecutive Saturdays, starting in April 27th from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Snoqualmie Fire Station. Any residents interested in attending are encouraged to call 425-888-5911. And welcome to the earliest spring start in 128 years. We live in a beautiful part of the world, and everybody have a safe time this week, and please be careful whatever you do and enjoy life. And with that, I'll ask for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we're off and running. Okay, thank you all.
Go.